this is an add-on. This is still continuing these because they keep showing me many, many different people. But there's this one person they keep showing, and it was a tough one. It was like I kept forgiving, but it felt like I had to continually forgive because I had to continually see more angles of where I was thinking I was wrong or bad or blaming me because everything was directed at me. And yet then they would take me through the process where I could recognize it had nothing to do with me, even though it kept being spouted and directed towards me. And when they would lift me up to see that, it would break my heart, right? Because I could see how much pain this person was in and why they wanted to puke it up onto me or blame me. And in other words, I don't think they consciously recognized they were doing that either. And they just were so hurt, so in their wound, so in pain. And I was triggering them and their wound and their pain. And so that hurt them. And so they blamed me. And again, it was like I was unaware that I was triggering any wound, right? It's like all this like ring around the rosy idea where, and so then I kept blaming me, and then, it's none of that I don't think matters here, where it's like, I think what broke my heart over and over is as they would lift me up and I would see how much pain this person was in. It was heartbreaking because I love this person so much. And it was like, well, I don't want to cause them more pain thinking that, like, I don't want them to then carry guilt and shame for treating me any which way, assuming that they're doing their own shadow work and realizing, and it's like totally forgiving them, of course. And I'm sorry, not only do I forgive them, but I'm also so sorry they had to go through what they went through with themselves, like telling themselves the stories they're telling themselves and speaking to themselves the way they're speaking to themselves, and hinging whatever they're hinging, and how they're holding themselves to whatever standards or whatever lies they're feeding themselves and repeating to themselves. It breaks my heart, right? And so I would, in the vision and how they would take me, I was like, I would, hold both their ears and kiss the top of their head and tell them I love them so much, and I want them to love themselves too. And yet again, that's what we talk about. Like, they have to do that work, right? I can love them till the cows come home, but it's not going to change anything, right? It's just like unconditional love loves all of us unconditionally so much. We just don't understand. We can't as humans. That it's just like when we get flooded with it, you hear so many people talk about it's ecstasy, it's this, because we're not familiar with that, and sustaining that hit is so powerful and so strong. It does leave a stain, a tattoo on your heart, right? It's just whoo, and there's nothing here like it, and yet, he can love us and does forevermore. And yet, and I say he, but we all know it's really an energy. It's the highest of all. And we like to formulate an equation in our mind to quantify and comprehend. So bear with these choppy words, but nonetheless, he is always doing that and there for us, and making that unconditional love available for all of us. Yet we have to do the work to receive it. So the work to do to receive it is loving ourselves and knowing that we're good and worthy. And if we can't just jump there, which many of us cannot, it's okay. Let's unravel it. Why can't you? Why? What lie are you telling yourself? And what have you perpetuated? And because of that perpetuation, what have you done? And then you've just added on guilt and shame and more blockages to allowing an unconditional love. So we have to strip all that away. And that takes time. It takes time to strip away all the guilt, the shame, the blame. We call it karma, right? What we put out's coming back, right? We have to go through all those barricades, all those blockages, face all those demons, all those lies, all those shadows, all those shames, and take a real look at them, and forgive them, right? Because you're forgiving yourself. And so, it takes time. It takes time for all of us. And it's just a matter of how much time. Well, how long, right, have you lived in unforgiving yourself? And so the more we do that work for ourselves, it's not only beneficial for us tremendously, but it really does help all those around us, because then you share it in all types of ways, because you start to fill up more and more with the Holy Spirit, or with unconditional love, or with Allah, or with the highest vibration of all, or with whatever word you like to use. You're healing yourself, right? Unconditional love is healing you. It's filling you, that liquid gold from the inside out, because you're unlocking your heart. You're flooding yourself with that flow, right? Your higher self has connected you to fill up and to flow. And oh God, it is like nothing else. And so it's worth always doing that work and continuing to do that work. And yet, and I share this and I say this because this is all I know, is what I know and what I experience. So please always bear that in mind, because I was about to say something that was absolute, but it's an absolute for me. I'm sure there's a million other people who have a million different opinions on them, and whatever you resonate with. But what I was going to say is, it's the only way. The only way to reach there and get there is by doing the work to reconnect with yourself and your higher self, and have unconditional love flood you, fill you, heal you. But there's a million ways to get back to yourself. But I think that's the goal, is getting back to yourself and then reconnecting with the highest and greatest of all. And so you have to do that work, which means you have to be brutally honest with yourself. And that's what's hard. That's what's hard, because when you're brutally honest with yourself, that means you have to look at the ugly parts of yourself, the stuff that you are ashamed of, the stuff that you have hidden even from yourself, right? Not realizing you did what you did for that reason. You were so in the dark, you were so in the shadows, you were so in your wound that, oh my God, I was doing that. But you didn't go in consciously doing that. Some people do, but then that's just more of their own. It's just a bigger piece of the pie they're going to have to swallow, right? Like we can go on for days. Do you notice that? They have me starting off lately because I feel like it's a lot that I have to heal. And then I share what I'm learning, healing, extrapolating. But then I feel like I'm preaching or teaching. I don't mean to at the end. I'm just sharing. And I'm actually talking to myself a lot of times to heal myself, to remind myself, for me to understand and integrate it better. And yet, there's always more. This is why I say I could go on and on. I could talk for days, because this is how we have to always talk to ourselves and remind ourselves and remember that we are worthy and that we are good, and continue to do that work and to do better by oneself, by staying aligned with oneself and true with oneself, honest with oneself, and figuring out what that means. Because it doesn't mean saying the pretty rosy thing to please others, because then it's nice, because that's forming with an identity, and that's lying, and that's manipulating. And that's why I say it that way, because you hear people say it's just lip service, or they believe that that's the right way by putting on all those masks and all those lies and being nice and flowery and pretending to be high vibe and happy and all that stuff. And that isn't real. That's not authentic. That's not true. And that can only harm you, right? Because it's living in a lie and in a shadow and an identity. And it's feeding that ego. It's not feeding that heart. It's not feeding your truth. And it's like the more we can awaken to those things and see them for ourselves, then we can be honest with ourselves and heal ourselves. And not that there aren't times like that. Of course, there's a lot of times. There's a lot more times, let's hope, that are like that you truly are happy. But I'm saying there was such a big wave of that, although I feel like we're coming out of that wave. I really do. But I feel like there was such a big wave for generations of that, where people just would use different terms of saying that, but it was high vibe or peace, love, and light, or like all these things where they wanted to believe what they were saying. And some did, but it was like the 1% of the people saying that meant what they were saying. And then other people just fed off of that saying and played that role, even though they were screaming inside. They were hurt inside because they were lying to themselves inside. They weren't purging out truth, right? And they were just pretending that things didn't bother them or trigger them or upset them. So then they were never healing them. They're not healing it, ignoring it. They're not healing it, stuffing it down. They're not healing it by slapping on a smile. They're building resentment and anger and fury and rage in their belly. That's sure the fuck not healing anything. That's that smiling in your face, but they're ready to rip you to shreds. That's not growth. That's not healing. That's not helping. That's not helping them, and that's not helping that other person. That's not, do you see what I'm saying? That's the idea of like, that's why it can't be lip service. And that's why you can't just pretend to be happy or slap on. I mean, man. Yeah. But again, it's like the people who hear this and know that don't need to listen to this. They already do know it. It's the people who think they know that need to hear it over and over and over until they're like, oh my God. It's like, it's the wake up call they need, but they can't hear it because they're so far in the depths of the water that they can't hear that far down. And so it's like somebody has to keep echoing down until it reaches them and they get curious enough to start swimming up to the surface. Yeah. Okay. Thanks so much for tuning in and listening. You can now purchase an audio journey with me using the link below.